I built Emma's empire, but she spat in my face. Her friends laughed as she called me a failure. I set her up to crash in front of everyone, and it was all live streamed. I was 27 when I landed a job as a personal assistant to Emma, a mega influencer with 6 million Instagram followers. Based in Los Angeles, California, she was the queen of curated aesthetics. Her feed a glossy parade of beach sunsets, designer bags, and avocado toast brunches. Her brand screamed effortless luxury, but behind the scenes, it was anything but. I'm Sarah, by the way, just a regular girl from Pasadena with a knack for organization and a dream to break into the creative world. When I saw the job posting on a Hollywood networking site, it felt like fate. The pay wasn't great, $35,000 a year, but the promise of industry connections was irresistible. I thought working for Emma would open doors. Instead, it was like stepping into a pressure cooker. My first day, she handed me a phone that buzzed nonstop. "You're on call 24/7, she said, her smile sharp as a knife. "Don't screw this up." My life became a blur of 12-hour shifts by her side, plus 12 more on standby. I scheduled her photo shoots, answered fan DMs, and even picked up her dry cleaning at 2 a.m. once. Emma had a way of making you feel indispensable yet invisible. She'd praise me in private, calling me her secret weapon. But in public, I was just the help. I didn't mind at first. I was learning the ropes, meeting influencers, and getting a front row seat to her glamorous world. What I didn't expect was how much she relied on me creatively. Emma wasn't just a face. She was a brand built on lies. She couldn't style a photo to save her life. I'd spend hours editing her shots, tweaking lighting, and slimming her silhouette for that perfect Instagram glow. She'd post them, racking up likes, while I got nothing but a nod. Still, I thought it was part of the grind. I was young, hungry, and willing to pay my dues. Then came the trust. After 6 months, Emma started leaning on me harder. She'd ask for my input on captions, color palettes, even her outfits. "You've got an eye for this, Sarah," she'd say, tossing her hair. I felt a spark of pride. Maybe I was more than just an assistant. Maybe I was part of her creative process. That illusion lasted until she dropped a bombshell that changed everything. One morning, over oat milk lattes in her sleek West Hollywood penthouse, she casually mentioned a new project. "I'm launching an art book," she said, scrolling through her phone. "It's going to be huge. Think coffee table chic, 120 pages of my vision." I nodded, expecting to coordinate logistics. Instead, she looked at me, eyes glinting. "You're going to create it, from scratch, in 5 weeks. My stomach dropped. I wasn't a professional artist, just a girl who'd taken a few photography classes in college. "Don't worry," she added, waving a manicured hand. "I'll pay you a $1,000 bonus if it's good." Her tone made it clear. This wasn't optional. I wanted to say no, to tell her I wasn't qualified, but the look in her eyes stopped me. It was the same look she gave me when I hesitated to drive across town at midnight for her favorite smoothie. I was trapped. So I said yes, not knowing it would lead to the worst betrayal of my life. Those 5 weeks were hell. I barely slept, surviving on black coffee and sheer panic. Emma's art book wasn't just a project. It was a beast. I had to create 120 pages of stunning visuals, photographs, layouts, and captions, all while juggling her endless demands. I'd be up at 3 a.m., editing shots of her posing with vintage cameras in Malibu, while she texted me to reorder her skincare products. My apartment in Pasadena became a war zone of mood boards, camera gear, and half-eaten takeout. I was drowning, but the $1,000 bonus kept me going. That, and the faint hope this could be my big break. I poured everything into that book. I scoured Los Angeles for perfect backdrops, gritty downtown alleys, sunlit Venice Beach boardwalks, even a hidden garden in Griffith Park. I taught myself advanced Photoshop techniques to make Emma's vision pop. Every photo was meticulously crafted, every caption polished to match her brand's glossy vibe. I even wrote a glowing About Emma section, painting her as a creative genius. By week 4, I was a zombie, my eyes burning from screen time, my hands shaking from caffeine. But I did it. I delivered a 120-page masterpiece, ready for her Beverly Hills launch party. Emma flipped through the PDF on her iPad, her lips curling into a smug smile. "Not bad, Sarah," she said, tossing her hair. "I might actually let you come to the party." I was too exhausted to question her tone. The invite felt like a reward, a rare chance to mingle with LA's influencer elite. She even promised I could network, maybe pitch my own ideas. I should have known better. Emma didn't share the spotlight. The party was at a swanky rooftop venue in Beverly Hills, all glass railings and fairy lights. I arrived early, hauling crates of printed book samples I'd paid $200 out of pocket to rush order. Emma barely acknowledged me, too busy posing for selfies with her clique. I set up the display, my hands trembling from nerves and fatigue. The book looked incredible, vibrant, sleek, every page screaming luxury. Guests fawned over it, snapping photos, tagging Emma. I felt a flicker of pride. This was my work, even if no one knew it. Then Emma struck. We were standing near the dessert table. Me, her, and a few of her influencer friends, tanned, perfect people with names like Chloe and Ethan. They were raving about the book's aesthetic. "Emma, you're a genius," Chloe gushed, flipping through a copy. I smiled, waiting for a nod, a hint that I'd contributed. Instead, Emma laughed, loud and sharp. "Oh, Sarah tried to help with a few shots once," she said, her eyes glinting. "She nearly broke my camera. Can you imagine her trying to compose a shot?" The group erupted in laughter, their eyes darting to me. My face burned, but I was too tired to speak. I forced a weak chuckle, hoping it'd stop there. It didn't. Emma leaned in, her voice dripping with mock pity. "Her last boyfriend dumped her because she couldn't even frame a selfie right," she said. "I had to teach her how to hold a phone." More laughter, louder now, like knives in my chest. I stood there, frozen, the room spinning. She wasn't just taking credit, she was shredding my dignity in front of people who could have been my network. Someone asked, "How do you do it, Emma?" A whole book in 5 weeks, this party, and your charity gala last month? Emma basked in the praise, her smile radiant. It's all about passion, she said, not even glancing at me. I live for this. I wanted to scream, to tell them I'd slaved over every pixel, every word. But my voice was gone, buried under 37 hours without sleep and months of her gaslighting. I turned away, pretending to adjust the display, my hands shaking. That's when I knew I couldn't let her win. Not like this. Emma thought she'd crushed me, but she'd just lit a fire. I wasn't going to stay her invisible assistant forever. I'd make sure everyone saw her for what she really was. The laughter from Emma's clique still echoed in my head, each chuckle a fresh cut. I stood by the book display, gripping a stack of glossy pages, my heart pounding. I'd spent weeks pouring my soul into her art book, and she'd turned me into a punchline. Enough was enough. I wasn't going to let Emma keep stealing my work and trampling my dignity. Right there, under the Beverly Hills fairy lights, a plan sparked. Emma's whole brand rested on her creative genius. If I could expose her as a fraud in front of her adoring crowd, she'd have nowhere to hide. I scanned the rooftop. Influencers sipped champagne, snapping selfies with the Hollywood sign glowing in the distance. The book display was a hit, but Emma's ego was the real star of the night. I knew her better than anyone. She couldn't resist a stage. If I could get her to create something live, something she couldn't fake, her facade would crumble. My eyes landed on a small table set up for a live photo demo, complete with a camera, props, and a blank canvas backdrop. It was meant for guests to play around with, but it was perfect for what I had in mind. I approached Emma, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. Hey Emma, I said, loud enough for her friends to hear. Everyone's raving about the book. Why don't you do a live demo? Show them how you set up one of those iconic shots. Her smile froze, her eyes narrowing. What? She snapped, but Chloe clapped her hands. Oh my god, yes! Emma, you have to! The crowd around us buzzed, phones already out, ready to capture the moment. Emma's face twitched. She couldn't say no without looking weak. Fine, she said, tossing her hair. Let's make it quick. I handed her a camera, my heart racing. I knew Emma had never touched a professional camera in her life. I'd done all her shoots, from setting the aperture to framing the shot. She strutted to the demo table, all confidence, but her hands fumbled as she picked up the camera. Okay, let's create something artistic, she said, her voice a little too high. The crowd gathered, some live streaming to their followers. Emma pointed the camera at a bowl of lemons, her fingers clumsy on the controls. You just click, right? She said, laughing nervously. The shutter didn't fire. I stepped forward, all innocence. Maybe adjust the focus, Emma, like you always do for your shoots. Her eyes shot daggers at me, but she fumbled with the lens, twisting it the wrong way. The crowd murmured, sensing something off. Wait, let me try this, she said, grabbing a prop, a silk scarf, and draping it over the lemons. It looked like a crumpled mess. Someone snorted. Emma, maybe try a different angle, Ethan suggested, his tone polite but confused. She snapped a few blurry shots, her cheeks flushing. This camera's garbage, she muttered, slamming it down. I seized the moment. Oh, Emma, why don't you show them your signature composition, like the one on page 47 of the book? Page 47 was a complex shot I'd spent hours perfecting, a layered still life with precise lighting. She had no idea how I'd done it. Her face went pale. I don't have my usual setup, she stammered, but the crowd was hooked, chanting for her to try. She grabbed a few props, flowers, a glass vase, arranging them in a chaotic pile. The result was a disaster, like a toddler's craft project. Phones recorded every second. I'm not feeling it, she said, her voice cracking. The crowd's excitement turned to awkward silence. Chloe whispered to Ethan, she can't be serious. I felt a rush of triumph, but I wasn't done. Emma, maybe you can talk us through your process, I said, my tone sweet as poison. Like how you came up with the book's aesthetic? Her eyes locked on mine, pure hatred. Before she could respond, she lunged forward, knocking over the table. Props crashed to the floor, and in her flailing, she grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. A sharp pain shot through my wrist as blood welled up. This is your fault, she screamed, her voice echoing across the rooftop. The crowd gasped, phones still rolling. I yanked my arm free, my heart pounding. No, Emma, you did this to yourself, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You can't create what you've been faking all along. The silence was deafening. Ethan stepped forward, looking shocked. Wait, Sarah, did you make the book? Before I could answer, Emma shrieked, she's lying. She's just my assistant. But the damage was done. Her friends stared, their phones capturing her meltdown. Sarah, a travel vlogger I'd met earlier, was live streaming, her face pale as she recorded. Emma's manager rushed over, trying to pull her away, but she spun on me again, her nails swiping at my face. I dodged, but not before she grazed my cheek, leaving a stinging scratch. You're done, she screamed. I'll ruin you. The crowd was frozen, some whispering, others filming. Sarah stepped closer, her phone still up. Emma, stop, she said, her voice firm. Everyone saw what just happened. Emma's eyes darted around, realizing she was trapped. She stormed off, her heels clicking, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. I stood there, my wrist bleeding, my cheek stinging, but I felt alive. For the first time in months, I'd stood up to her. The crowd started murmuring, some approaching me with concern, others checking their phones, already posting the drama. Sarah pulled me aside, her eyes wide. I got it all on video, she whispered. The demo, her meltdown, everything. I nodded, my mind racing. This wasn't just revenge, it was the start of something bigger. Emma thought she could bury me, but I'd just turned her stage into mine. Blood trickled down my wrist as I stood on the Beverly Hills rooftop, the fairy lights now mocking the chaos. Emma's meltdown had left the crowd buzzing, their phones still glowing with recorded evidence. I pressed a napkin to my scratch, my heart pounding from adrenaline and something else relief. I'd exposed her, and for the first time, I wasn't invisible. But the high didn't didn't last. As I drove back to my Pasadena apartment, my phone lit up with texts from Emma. "You're fired. Pack your things. You're done in this city." Another message followed, colder. "I've locked you out of the apartment. Your stuff's in storage. Good luck." My stomach sank. The apartment in Hollywood was part of my job package, Emma's way of keeping me under her thumb. I pulled over, my hands shaking, and called my friend Jake, a barista I'd known since college. "Can I crash at your place?" I asked, my voice cracking. He didn't hesitate. "Get over here, now." By the time I reached his cramped Silver Lake apartment, it was past midnight. I collapsed on his couch, the weight of the night crushing me. My cheeks stung, my wrist throbbed, and my career felt like ash. The next morning, my phone was a Warzone 27 missed calls from Emma, 50 texts ranging from threats to gaslighting. "You overreacted," one read. "You're making this worse for yourself." The worst came last. "I've emailed every contact I have. You'll never work in LA again." I scrolled through her Instagram stories, where she'd already started spinning the narrative. "Betrayed by someone I trusted," she posted, a selfie with teary eyes. Her followers ate it up, flooding my accounts with hate. "Backstabbing loser," one DM read. I turned off my notifications, my chest tight. Jake handed me coffee, his face grim. "You need a lawyer, Sarah. This is insane." I nodded, digging through my bag for the business card Sarah, the vlogger, had slipped me at the party. Her friend Michael was a lawyer who handled influencer disputes. I called him, my voice shaky as I recounted the night Emma's lies, the book, her attack. "Send me everything," Michael said, calm but firm. "Texts, photos of your injuries, any proof you created that book." I emailed him screenshots, cloud backups of my work, and a picture of my scratched wrist and cheek. 2 days later, I met Michael at his office in downtown LA, a sleek space with views of the skyline. He'd reviewed my files and was blunt. "You've got a case for wage theft, harassment, and assault," he said, sliding a draft letter across the desk. "This demands credit for the book, $15,000 for unpaid overtime, and compensation for the assault. We're also addressing the apartment lockout." I stared at the numbers, my head spinning. "What if she fights back?" I asked. Michael smiled thinly. "She will, but we have Sarah's video and witness statements. She's on shaky ground." He was right about the fight. Emma's lawyer, a high-powered shark from Century City, responded with a letter accusing me of breaching my contract and sabotaging Emma's brand. They demanded I sign a retroactive NDA and drop all claims, or they'd sue me into oblivion. My heart sank. I couldn't afford a legal battle, not on my $35,000 salary, most of which I'd spent on rent and that $200 rush order for Emma's books. "She's trying to scare you," Michael said when I showed him the letter. "But she's bluffing. Her followers might buy her act, but courts won't." The video was our ace. Sarah had sent me the footage, 2 minutes of Emma fumbling with the camera, snapping at me, and lunging with her nails. It was damning, especially with witnesses like Chloe and Ethan confirming my story. Michael sent our demand letter, and within a week, Emma's team backed down. They agreed to credit me as the book's creator and pay $12,000 for overtime, less than we asked, but enough to cover my moving costs. The assault claim was trickier. Emma's lawyer argued it was mutual. Michael advised me to drop it to avoid a drawn-out fight. I agreed, just wanting it over. But Emma wasn't done. Her Instagram stories kept up the victim act, hinting at jealous haters without naming me. Her fans kept harassing me, and when I went to retrieve my stuff from the storage unit in Van Nuys, half was missing clothes, my laptop charger, even my old college sketchbooks. Emma's texts claimed she had no idea where they went. I didn't believe her, but I had no proof. Michael suggested we focus on the win. I had credit, money, and my freedom. Still, the loss stung, and I knew Emma was plotting her next move. She wasn't the type to let me walk away unscathed. The $12,000 settlement felt like a lifeline. It wasn't life-changing, but it covered the deposit on a tiny studio in Echo Park, a far cry from Emma's glossy Hollywood world. I moved in with what little I had left, my hands still shaking from the ordeal. Jake helped me carry boxes, joking that my new place looked like a hipster closet. I laughed for the first time in weeks, feeling a spark of hope. Emma's grip on my life was loosening, but I knew she wasn't done. Her Instagram was still buzzing with veiled jabs, and her fans kept flooding my DMs with hate. I muted her account and focused on rebuilding. A week later, my phone rang. It was Emily, an editor from a New York-based art magazine who'd been at Emma's party. "Sarah, your photos in that book were stunning," she said, her voice warm. "I heard you were the real talent behind it. We're looking for freelance photographers for our summer issue. Interested?" My heart raced. A real gig, under my own name? I said yes before she finished talking. The job was small 3-photo spreads for $500, but it was mine. I spent days in my cramped kitchen, sketching concepts, feeling alive again. Then came the bombshell. Sarah, the vlogger, texted me a tip. Emma had landed a TV deal with a cable network for an art show filming in New York. My stomach churned. She was moving to a bigger stage, still faking her talent. But Sarah had a connection, a producer named Lisa, who worked on the show. "They're worried Emma can't deliver," Sarah said. "I mentioned you. They want a food prep assistant who knows the truth. You in?" The idea of working near Emma again made my skin crawl, but the chance to see her crash on a bigger stage was too tempting. I said yes. I flew to New York, my nerves jangling. The production company buried my name deep in the crew list, and I kept my head down, tying my hair back and wearing glasses to stay unrecognizable. On the first day of shooting in a sleek Brooklyn studio, I prepped props behind the scenes, watching Emma strut onto the set. She looked flawless, but her hands trembled as she faced the cameras. The director, a no-nonsense woman named Karen, wanted authentic art demos. Emma's first task was a simple still life shoot. It was a disaster. She fumbled the camera, burned out the lighting, and arranged props like a kid playing with toys. "This setup's wrong," she snapped, blaming the crew. After 4 botched takes, Karen called a break. Her face tight. I overheard Emma pleading with the producer, "Can we do lifestyle instead? Less technical stuff?" I hid a smile, chopping fabric swatches for the next segment. Her lies were unraveling. By day's end, the production was 6 hours behind, and the crew was whispering about recasting. Lisa pulled me aside. "You were right. She's clueless," she said, rubbing her temples. "The network's freaking out. They need this show to work." She paused, eyeing me. "What if you stepped up? Develop the shoots, Coach Emma? Get credited as creative producer?" I froze. Work with Emma? After everything? But the offer was gold, a credited role on a national show, untouchable by Emma's schemes. "She'll never agree," I said. Lisa smirked. "The network's got her cornered. She's out of moves." The next day, I walked into a meeting with Emma, Karen, and the producers. Emma's face when she saw me was pure venom, but she stayed silent as Karen laid out the deal. I'd develop all shoots, train Emma, and get on-screen credit. In return, we'd sign mutual non-disparagement agreements. Emma's smile was forced, her voice tight. "Happy to work with talent," she said, her eyes screaming murder. I just nodded, my heart steady. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. The show aired 3 months later, my name in the credits as creative producer. Emma stumbled through, but my work shone. Blogs praised the stunning visuals, some mentioning me by name. A rival network offered me a full-time gig as a lead photographer. I took it, leaving Emma's show behind. A year later, I published my own photo book in Brooklyn, small but authentic. Emma's show fizzled after 1 season. I didn't care. I'd built something real, and no one could take that away.